Guys, chin up. We're going to go ahead and go live.
Let's do it.
You're listening to Well Met, a Hearthstone podcast brought to you by BlizzPro.com.
Well met.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Well Met. We're up to episode number 29, one away from 30, so we are almost there. I'm John. I'm here every week pushing the buttons, but of course, we've got a whole crew with us this week. So first, all the way from Saskatoon, Canada, it is Kevin Ovdestad. Hey, Kev.
How's it going, John?
It's going great. How are you doing?
Better. I was starting to come down with a little something, some kind of cold or flu or something towards the end of last week's show and fought through it this week. I'm feeling a lot better. Sad I had to miss out on DreamHack. I actually had to back out because I was too sick to cast it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was disappointed in that.
Brutal.
But better, back, ready to rock and roll this week. So
awesome. Glad you're feeling better, man. Well,
Thanks.
Hey, welcome. Also as well, all the way from Kansas City, it is the man, the myth, the legend. It's JR Cook. Hey, JR.
Hey, John. Man, another good week. We're closing in on episode 30.
Yes, I can't believe
week,
it.
Right?
We're growing up into a full-fledged adult podcast. So
Yeah.
speak for yourself,
yeah,
man.
Do adult things.
adult things like pay our taxes.
Yeah, it's a bummer being an adult, but at least we get to play games like Hearthstone
Yeah, that's true.
whenever we want.
Let's go back to talk about the children's card game of Wizard Poker and keep going. Also, really quick before we get going, I want to give a shout out to Seabass on Twitter who said that we used the word super 23 times last week on the podcast, and he said he's going to make a drinking game about it. Therefore, for you, Seabass, super, 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 super. There you go. Have fun. Please don't drink and drive. Thanks a lot.
That's pretty super.
All right, let's talk about how we did on the ladder this week. Kevin. We're going to Kevin.
Kevin.
Kevin. Kevin. JK, we're going to JR. JR, how'd you do on the ladder this week?
So funny story. Not really funny story. I've had a pretty
Great
busy
start. Great start,
Yeah.
by the way.
I've had a pretty busy week. Didn't really have a chance to play on the ladder. Between work, project winding down, going to Royals games, like I think I went to 4 straight games in a row. Got to watch them clinch the AL Central Division.
Congrats.
Yeah. The only thing that I really got to play was the new Tavern Brawl. And I thought that was fun. I actually played that quite a bit at work on my downtime.
Nice.
The reason why I don't ladder at work is my connection while I'm at work isn't very good on my phone. So I disconnect a lot. So I don't like, playing ranked or whatever when I'm actually at work. So when that happens, I'm usually messing around in Tavern Brawl.
All right.
So this week's Tavern Brawl was pretty cool, though. I thought, like, everybody was all, it's all about the Warlock or whatever, and I thought I had more fun playing Priest because it was more fun, I thought, to heal your opponent and get your minion and also be able to steal their stuff, because that's what Priests do, because Priest is the new rogue.
That sounds a little backwards. I'm not really sure I follow here.
No, because you heal them. If they have a minion, you steal their minion. And then you get minions also because you're lower than them because you healed them up.
Interesting. Did you see some good success with it?
I won a few times. It wasn't too bad.
That one time I won was so good.
But, yeah, it's one of those things where the ladder for me this week is just... towards the end of the month, I didn't really get a chance to play it the last 2 weeks, so I didn't really want to invest a lot of time in it either. Starting up October 1st, I got a lot of free time coming up, so I'm really going to push it in October.
Awesome. How about you, Kev? How'd you do on the ladder this week?
Not bad. I mean, because I did the legend grind last month and finally made it, I haven't pushed myself quite as hard this month. I've sort of been trying to find the fun again a little bit, not just work at it. So I played a lot of decks that were just gimmicky and not actually probably ladder viable. I've been playing a lot of shaman just to mess with people. I'm at like rank 4 or 5, and I'm kind of bouncing around in that range and just enjoying it because it's a lot of fun. People don't, I think, know how to do the math around shaman lethal and combos and stuff. Like they just don't know what to expect, and they throw down a big board of stuff and lose it to the crazy combinations of stuff you can do with shaman, and just nobody seems to think it through. They don't think through the silences, the hexes, the fire elementals. Like the combo is so different. Everybody's worried about turn 8 patron and turn 9 druid. They don't think about turn 7 Thunderbluff Valiant Totem, right? Like it's just a whole different mentality. So I enjoyed it, but I mean it's probably not going to carry me much past about rank 4.
Yeah.
What about you, man?
Well, I said why not have fun and climb the ranks as well. So Secret Paladin is where it's at this month, boys. Holy crap, is it fun? Holy crap. Quit shaking your head. Good Lord.
You're a bad person.
Take your judgment somewhere else, sir. I am winning and I am enjoying it, and that is what matters.
Judgment, I see what you did there.
Not even intentional, honestly. I've had such a crazy weekend that any puns or things that I'm making this week are completely unintentional. So I may be hilarious, but it's not by trying. So yeah, but it was really fun. I actually, no joke, I was telling Kevin, I went from the start of the season to, I'm at rank 5 now in 37 games. I streaked all the way from 11 to 5 with 1 loss. And that was really fun, made me feel really good. And so it's starting to change, so I'm going back to Druid from Secret Paladin. But yeah, man, it was a lot of, and it was the first time where I was in the break room at work at one of my stores, and I was just so amped up each time when I was throwing down a turn 6 Mysterious Challenger, or even not even getting it because it's so close to Aggro Paladin the first half, and then you got Dr. Boom and Tyrion to finish it off. It was a blast, and I think it's really easy to play around, and I know JR and Kevin, you guys do too, that it's not that strong of a deck. Now, to be honest, we all mainly play like counters to that deck, so that might be part of it, but everyone else hasn't quite seemed to figure it out yet, and that has been the joy for me this week. So,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. You played like 37 people who probably have never seen the deck before or something like that, because, or still have not figured out how to beat it. But it's a good deck to catch people off guard with.
Hear me for 1 second. Do you think that's the deck or you as the pilot that let it streak that effectively?
Are you really going to make me sound like a genius here? Because I'm
legitimately curious because I haven't played the deck in any serious capacity. I tried it when it was new. I played half a dozen games and then I shelved it because I was like, you know what? I don't enjoy this. It to me doesn't feel as reliable in terms of tempo as Hybrid Hunter, Tempo Mage, whatever, and I consider it a tempo deck, not an aggro deck. So.
Sure. Well, I mean, there's a couple of things. First of all, I did spend a lot of time with Vank Switcher playing aggro Paladin, so I feel really good about the first half of Paladin. So that might be part of it. It honestly, I've also, my favorite deck probably besides mid-range Druid is mid-range Hunter, then mid-range Paladin. So, those
just
mid-range stuff.
Really well.
So it's kind of just like, hey, take these two that you kind of know, put a little ham and Swiss cheese in there, slap it down, call it a deck, and then profit. So that's kind of where it was at. It was, I think part of it was me because I won every mirror match. Part of it was the ranks I was playing at because I've only played like 5 or 6 games at 7 and above. And another part of it was the deck. I do believe the deck is a legitimately good ladder deck. It is not a competitive deck because the strong competitive decks right now crush it. And so, I think it's important to distinguish between the two. But overall, it's a great ladder deck. In my opinion, you're used to seeing the face hunters, the aggro paladins. Definitely better than both. It's still up in tier 1, but yeah, you don't want to really take it to big premier or major tournaments for sure.
Fair enough.
Cool. Is there anything we need to jump into before we jumped into the news? Jared, do you have anything to say this week, or am I remembering from last week?
Actually, you just reminded me, and I would have forgotten. But
so good.
what was I going to say? Okay, so we're doing a charity thing this year,
Right?
BlizzPro. I've been doing it the last 2 years. It's the Extra Life charity. If you go to extralife.blizzpro.com, you will see my page there. I'm trying to raise money for the Kansas City Children's Hospital here in Kansas City, obviously. You can come help us by either donating to that and helping, try to get me to meet my goal, or we have a BlizzPro team, and you can come join us and then help raise money on your own for your own local children's hospital. At BlizzPro as a whole is trying to raise $10,000 as a team this year. So you can just join our team and be able to play some games and help raise money. The games can be anything. You can play. It's a 24-hour gaming marathon, but it doesn't have to be 24 hours straight. It can be, a few days of 6 hours here, 6 hours there, something like that. It can be any game. You can play Dungeons and Dragons. You can go out and play basketball with your friends or whatever. You're just pledging that you're going to play 24 hours of gaming, and then people donate money to the cause. And it's a really good charity. It helps purchase for kids that in the hospital. It's not fun. It's not you don't want to be there as a kid. Obviously, you don't want to see kids there. But it helps buys them games. It helps pay for their families to stay there and stuff like that. So it's a great charity. If you want to come join our team, awesome. If you want to donate, awesome. It's extralife.blizzpro.com.
And when is game day for Extra Life this year, JR?
I do not remember off the top of my head.
Okay. I want to say, I think it's actually November 7th.
I
think it's during BlizzCon.
Right. So I will probably be doing it the week after that.
Cool.
I was looking it up just now. You were correct. It's November 7th, so we'll be at BlizzCon. So I'll probably be doing it the week after.
Yeah, so we got to raise the money. We're still going to contribute, but we'll have to do our streams and stuff the following week.
Maybe if there's enough interest, we can find something to do together for some of that time. That'd be pretty fun.
That'd be awesome.
It would be pretty cool.
Cool. We just committed to it now, so let's go into the news.
This week in Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft.
So we've had a pretty busy week, but before we jump into that, let's couple reminders. We do still have the Well Met merch store at store.blizzpro.com. We got some awesome shirts. We love seeing your photos, stuff like that. So if you guys are picking them up, send us a photo. We love to see that. And also, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/wellmetpodcast. Not very creative name, but that's where we all are, and we're going ahead and we're really shooting to re-record some of our intro, outro stuff, getting our voice talent, Casey, back in here to do some stuff now that I figured out how a microphone works, and hopefully make it sound a little bit better than it is now. So if you guys want to contribute, go over there. We have awesome different tiers, including access to our sound files. We're making voicemail messages for people. We've got t-shirts and coaching and all that stuff over at patreon.com/wellmetpodcast. But let's go ahead and jump into some real Hearthstone news. And JR, I think you're kicking us off with this one.
Yeah, so this is a story that I don't think got it. I mean, it got a little bit of play in the news this week. Definitely not in the Hearthstone thing, because it doesn't really affect Hearthstone yet, but I think that it will in the near future. So as you guys know, I'm a pretty big sports fan, obviously. I grew up around sports. My dad played college football for the Hawkeyes. I grew up really into baseball and playing high school baseball. And, I'm really big into fantasy leagues. So like fantasy football, fantasy baseball, and things like that. In the last couple of years, there's been a a couple companies that have been advertising really hard on their fantasy sports. One of them is FanDuels.com, and the other one is DraftKings.com. And basically, what they allow you to do is you can make your lineup for that day. You have a set amount of budget, and based on you can then draft your players based on the salary. The higher the salary, the better the player. And you're trying to fit all these players in a budget. And then you go basically head to head against thousands of other people. You're paying money into this, and if you're in the top or whatever, then you win money. So it's the reason why I bring this up is because they are entering the esports market now. DraftKings is already doing this with League of Legends, so you can actually play like fantasy esports with League of Legends. And FanDuel's just bought a company called Alpha Draft, and they're going to allow you to start doing Dota 2, League of Legends, probably Counter-Strike, and I'm guessing this will eventually come into things like Heroes of the Storm, Overwatch, Hearthstone.
Come on, yeah.
I mean, so basically, think of the Archon Team League, right? Think of, okay, we have these players on these teams. Maybe we get to choose 3 players in a tournament or something like that. And I might pick, Kibler, Dog, and Trump or something like that, which is Value Town. But maybe a Maz in there or something like that. And, Kevin chooses 3 different players, and we pay $5 and see who ends up with the most points. And those points might be awarded in wins or whatever.
Let's be honest. In that one, I would dominate. I would have made so much money on Archon, by the way. I called that beginning to end. Anyway, sorry, I'm interrupting. Keep going.
Right, so my question is, and the problem that I have with stuff like FanDuels and DraftKings is it's almost like legalized sports gambling. Even though it's under the disguise of fantasy sports, you are basically spending money to potentially win money every day. You're not betting on a team, but you're betting on how well the players of those teams do.
Science. It's science. It's basically what it is.
So my first question to you guys is, with this kind of idea of betting on esports and players, how do you feel about this as a spectator of esports?
I don't really have a strong opinion, honestly. I don't think it's really harmful to the scene. I think this kind of stuff goes on, whether it's institutionalized or not, right? Like, you and I can make a friendly bet, you and John can make a friendly bet. Might have something to do with wearing a hat or something, whatever, who knows. But long term, right? I mean, the viability of fantasy esports, betting on esports, is tough to analyze right now because so little money gets spent on esports in general. Like, I don't think you're going to see millions of dollars trading hands because people are dropping $5 to guess who's going to win ATLC or something, right? Like, I don't see it. The bigger concern for me, honestly, is that a lot of those companies are also looking to sponsor esports teams and tournaments. And that starts to muddy the waters a little bit. Now you're in a kind of a weird gray area where a company that stands to profit off of the results is introducing money into the system with a particular team or tournament. And there's a huge conflict of interest and bias there. And that, I think, is sort of the bigger story around, like, if DraftKings is sponsoring Tempo Storm and Tempo Storm enters the tournament and Tempo Storm wins the tournament, like, what does that mean in terms of, the betting odds that were set up? Like, is there a bias? Was somebody paid off under the table? And that's been the long-term problem with all esports betting forever, right? It's why all the lines on Pro StarCraft are such a big deal, because you'll always hear these big spook stories, like 2 days before the Pro League finals, you'll hear that, some line that has a huge payout has been canceled. And everybody goes, oh God, does that mean there's suspicion that somebody's been paid to throw the game or whatever? And even if that doesn't happen, because it doesn't happen very often, it casts weird doubt over the whole of the esports scene. And I just don't want that. I don't want that element of it. So we can't stop it, I don't think, but I just don't want to see it start to leak its way into the pro scene in an institutionalized fashion like that.
I, on the other hand, have made a good sum of money playing at the blackjack table for many years, and the ability to watch Hearthstone and make money makes me very happy. So, I personally, as you can tell, Kevin is against making money for himself. He doesn't like to really make money. He wants to kind of hang out and, integrity of the game and things like this. As for me, I'm like, I want to make money while I watch a game that I spend money on, and I'll just funnel it through, complete my collection, all golden, and be good. I'm a huge fan of this. I would love to do this. I would do it all the time. I'd probably stick $50 a week into this if it came to Hearthstone. Seriously, and we saw enough big events to see it happen. I am really good at guessing winners of things. I think I have the best track record on the show, which, not to brag, but it's a big deal. So, yeah, I'm all about it. I would love to see it happen. And so I'm a big fan of it. Sorry, Kev. I mean, not that you're saying you're not a fan of it, because you're definitely not saying that, but definitely maintaining the integrity of the game and making sure there's no conflicts of interest is super important. But the only interest I care about is mine. And so as long as my wallet is filling up with cash, I am in love with this idea. So, yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like if you wanted to set up a private fantasy pool the way guys do for hockey and football and all that kind of stuff, and everybody has to pay $25 to get in, and then, the top 3 people walk away with that prize split, 60-30-10, like sure, by all means, I'll buy in, I'll play that game. I do that every year with a group of friends for the Oscars and have won pretty much every year for the last 5. Like it's neat, right? It can be fun to do in a private setting. I don't care about that. I care about the part where some company is doing this and it runs the risk of interfering with the legitimacy and honesty of our tournament scene. That's all.
Now, the way that this works, though, is it's not like they're not like setting odds on like who's going to win and who's not going to win. What they're basically doing is you are creating a roster of players. You are the players are basically have a salary based on how good they are. So, for example, RDU might have a really high salary. So if you want him on your team, he's going to cost a lot, and you're going to get only room for maybe 2 players that aren't as good. Whereas, if you pick 3 players that are medium level, you have maybe a higher chance of getting, 3 decent players that could possibly end up giving you a good overall outcome instead of banking it all on 1 player in RDU. So I'm not worried about the integrity at that point. What I'm personally worried about, though, is what about these players that, and it's not just $5. There's leagues that you can spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on, and put in. My worry is, what about these players that might put in and bet against themselves or on themselves and are able to throw matches for money? Is that going to be a problem?
Right, and that was sort of more what I was getting at, but yeah.
Pish posh, guys, come on. It's virtual card games with guys over in Europe who are really good at the game. Let's just spend money on stuff. That sounds awesome.
My next question for you guys, though, is with Blizzard's track record of terms of service, do you think they would allow anything like this with their games?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
I could see them trying to shut it down, but I mean, bottom line with something like this is they'll solve it if it becomes a problem, right? I think that's the track record, is if this becomes an issue, they'll intervene, they'll step in, they'll try to issue takedown notices, they won't allow players who are involved to participate in the Hearthstone World Championships. Boom, done. Now nobody wants a part of it because they'd rather play for their shot at $100,000. Like, it's a very solvable problem if it comes to that.
Yeah. And to be honest, like, I don't see, I was talking about, like, throwing matches and stuff like that. I don't see professional sports players, participating in this. But then again, They're making millions of dollars doing what they do, whereas a few thousand betting on sports. But then again, look at Pete Rose, who got banned from baseball for betting for his team, and not making as much as probably what he was making salary-wise. So I think I don't know, I think it's a slippery slope. I'm not a big fan of DraftKings and FanDuels in general, because like I said, I think it's legalized gambling, and I have no idea how they are even allowing it or anything like that. But I think it'll be interesting to see it come to esports. So
God bless the internet. Kevin, talk to us about Brian Kibler here.
Yeah, so Brian, don't call me Brian Kibler. Kibler is putting on his own tournament. The next weekend, October 2nd to 4th, they're hosting the Esports Arena Hearthstone up in California. Right now, confirmed players include Reynad, Trump, Strifecrow, Tides of Time, Hyped, and Dog. It's a $25,000 invitational. Supposedly, more players are to be announced. Entirely offline, so it will be local to... I don't remember which arena it's actually physically in, but it's in Santa Ana, California, and tickets are actually available online to be at the event in person, meet the players, hang out with them. $35 a day or $100 for the weekend. Is that something that if you guys were physically there, you would try to hit up?
Totally. I want to move to California for things just like this. So I would love to be there, hang out. Kibler, obviously, one of our favorite Hearthstone personalities, or personalities overall. I don't know how to totally classify that, but big fan of this. And yeah, it's really cool to kind of see there's lots of amazing names on that list.
Sounds like it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool that players themselves are starting to organize tournaments like this and giving away money based on things. It shows that you don't need the MLGs or the Dream Hacks or whatever to put on a really good, solid tournament. Just some players that have more money than I do to put them on, and some good sponsors. They can kick it off pretty well.
And that's a separate but interesting problem that we're actually going to come back to later in the show. But before we do that, we need to talk a little bit about the regional championships. John.
That was the most beautiful segue I have ever seen done in 29 episodes of this show. Well done, Kevin.
Thank you.
So, the NA and EU regional championships, and we'll even touch on China and Asia Pacific, as long as you don't tell everybody, because sometimes we get in trouble. But, so first, the regional championships consist of the top 8 players from each region. The players fight for $25,000 in cash, and the top 4 advancing go to BlizzCon World Championships. So we got 4 regions. It's NA, EU, Asia Pacific, and China. In the NA regional championships, they're going to be October 10th in San Francisco. It's going to be a LAN, and it's going to be broadcasting live on the official Twitch channel for Hearthstone, which is twitch.tv/playhearthstone. It's going to include VLPS, Hot Form, Purple Jab, Nias, Trump, Mole Gel, and Correa. As you can tell, those last 2 guys, by my hesitancy, are definitely coming from Central America and South America. I think one's Brazil, and the other is down there as well. EU regional championships are going to be happening on October 3rd and 4th in Prague. They're going to include Tice, Life Coach, come on, Team Nihilum, and Ostkaka, Hoj, Nyria, Jera 89, Pavel, and Maverick. China already has its 4 finalists, if I did my research right, which is Love CX, Zoro from Team Celestial, No Tomorrow, and Zihao from Team Celestial. So 2 people in the top 4 from Team Celestial. And then last but not least, Asia Pacific Regional Championships will happen this weekend, including Kranich, who we've seen from PvP Live, and Ping Ping Ho. We've seen him quite a bit, here and there scattered throughout tournaments. However, I am really interested. If you look at the EU Regional Championship, Tice, Life Coach, Ostkaka, Nyria, I said Ostkaka, didn't I? Hoj, sorry. Maverick, some really big names in Hearthstone. But over on NA, I mean, outside of really, I mean, Jab, we've seen Purple, Trump, seen some new names. I know, Kevin, you are all about seeing new people in the Hearthstone scene. So what do you think of these top 8 here from the NA?
I think it's really cool. And I'm disappointed that some of the like strong repeat performances couldn't be there. We're not seeing, Firebat or Maz. They were eliminated. We didn't get to see Phone Tap, which I loved seeing him break out and really succeed this year at DreamHack. So, I mean, there's lots of people who didn't make it. But on the flip side, I mean, there is something to be said for the new up-and-coming talent. And Hearthstone is a game where there's lots of people that can play it at a very competitive level. It's a game that, I mean, we talk all the time, you're a huge fan of Amnesia, right? 14-year-old kid who could just as easily be up on that stage playing against these people that are twice his age and have way more experience, because the game is very accessible in that respect. And the format does allow for new people to get in fairly easily, right? I mean, you can sign up and play in last call tournaments or just succeed on ladder and kind of break out that way. You don't need to be a personality or a streamer and get invited to a tournament per se. Like, there are other ways through the process. So in that respect, I think it's awesome. Definitely disappointing that, like, for example, Firebat not there to defend his title, but that's it's kind of a risk that you take with a format like this, right?
Indeed you do, good sir. So, I mean, unless you guys have anything else to add here with these through, I think we need to talk about something super important. So we have seen, I believe, this year's Road to BlizzCon. Did it start in February? Is that February or March?
January,
January. Okay. So January is when we started kind of collecting points for this year's BlizzCon. We saw all sorts of initial feedback and ideas about how it's gone, but now we are coming into October here. So we've got to actually seeing this double elimination conquest format, qualifier for the qualifier's qualifier type thing to get to BlizzCon. And man, I mean, this has been pretty complicated. In the end, I like Conquest as it is, but it's been pretty complicated getting there and keeping track of it. Even for our most advanced listeners, we get a lot of questions of like, what the heck is going on? So, Kevin, I need to ask you, how, if anything, is there a way to fix kind of how this roadmap works to go from, highly competitive player to BlizzCon without kind of all this rigmarole and razzmatazz to get all the way over to BlizzCon? What do you think?
Well, okay, so the reason I wanted to bring this up this week is because at this point we're done, right? The only thing left is the individual regionals. China's is done. We've got the 3 other regionals. They're all playing out over the next 2 weeks, and then it's over. We know who's going to BlizzCon. The process wasn't, I don't think, flawed. I don't want to say that this year's path to BlizzCon wasn't good. But I look at it in context of how it lines up against other esports. And for anybody else who is into the esports scene in any way, whether it's, StarCraft WCS or Heroes of the Storm new this year, CSGO, Dota, LCS for League, take your pick. Most of them have the ability to build a better storyline because the whole of the, path to the World Championship, whatever form that may take, is built around precursor tournaments and events that sort of build up and lead to that sort of ultimate grand finale at the end of the year. With StarCraft as an example, because it's an easy one for me, you've got 3 major seasons of play that crown regional champions. Those people earn points based on the Blizzard-sponsored league that runs in a tournament format all year long. So you still have all the same basic elements, right? People can still play in qualifiers to get in. They're an open process. If you make it through the qualifier, you play in a secondary tournament that determines who actually gets seeded into the Premier League and plays competitively to see, who gets placed where and how they do in that season. And then that in turn determines point allocation. There's still all the same benefits that Blizzard has set up with all of the other programs they've built around third-party tournaments awarding money and prizes and stuff and points towards that qualifying system, but it also lets people watch tournaments and storylines develop throughout the year. with Hearthstone, we just finished talking about how cool it is, to JR's point, that like Kibler can just throw his own tournament, or Archon can dump some money and host their own event, and that is cool. But that's also the only watchable Hearthstone tournament events from January to November. For the rest of the year, outside of BlizzCon, there's no Blizzard-sponsored tournament to just tune in and watch on the weekends. Your only way to see how things are going is to sit and watch people stream their ladder games and see how people place on the ladder at the end of a given month. And so from January to August, that's all we really got outside of watching like a DreamHack or whatever. And a lot of the third-party Hearthstone tournaments don't bother to apply to work within Blizzard's regulation and framework and tournament format to be eligible to contribute points towards the Hearthstone World Championship, right? They just run their own tournament. Here's our $10,000 prize, but we're not going to worry about Conquest or Blizzard partnerships because that sets rules around like who we can have for sponsors and where we can stream and blah, blah, blah. Like it makes for a very slow year outside of this part of the year where it's like every weekend you're getting slammed with qualifiers and regionals and BlizzCon for 8 weeks, right? And the rest of the year.
Do we lose him, JR?
I think so.
He's frozen. He's looking good as ever. We lost him for a bit. He's on a great roll, though, which is, something Kevin's always known for doing. Probably one of the biggest reasons why we have Kevin on this show is his ability to take something as droll and, kind of insane as that and make it into a beautiful, long, lengthy-looking re-establishment of BlizzCon. Kevin, welcome back. Go ahead and finish your thought if you can remember where you were.
Well, what was the last thing you guys heard? I have no idea where I got cut off.
You're talking about Blizzard tournaments and people not third-party tournaments coming up to the scene, and
right,
how Blizzard wasn't really, they didn't really want to partner with them and things like that.
Right. So, what I was getting at, I guess, is that long term, I would really love to see Blizzard kind of step in, build some sort of like seasonal events or hold like a bi-monthly tournament based on ladder rankings or something, and have that be the qualifying process into regionals so that there was tournaments and events to watch and attend throughout the year, not just the third-party stuff with no intervention from Blizzard whatsoever. Not because I don't think the third-party tournaments are good or like sufficient, but it just makes it way easier to have something to tune in and watch, follow the story. Anybody who watches any other esport has this, right? For JR, like, this would be like if you didn't actually get regular season games in baseball, right? It's just nothing happens all year, and at the end of the year, everybody shows up, they get to bat twice, whoever gets the highest RBI or whatever gets to go to the playoffs, or I don't know what that is in baseball.
Kevin, terminology for baseball, you already get plus 2 points, so well done. Good job. Yeah. But I get your point. Separate from this, yes. But in this scenario, no, you're not. Now, to be fair, Blizzard has co-sponsored, I guess I would say, a lot of different Hearthstone tournaments. ATLC was one of them. And even then, in week 1 or week 2 of ATLC, we saw the stuff with Wreckful, and it sounds like a big reason why he was pulled, kind of in those initial couple days was because of Blizzard saying, hey, we can't really be doing that. So, there are definitely... Blizzard still has a presence. I think what I like is kind of a hybrid. I don't know if I want just all Blizzard events all the time, but I would like to see Blizzard take a more proactive role in supporting tournament organizers to make successful, big, well-broadcast, big-name tournaments. Preferably LANs, because I love LANs, even though I've never been to one yet. Can't wait till BlizzCon for that. And I think that in the end, rather than having like a bunch of random tournaments and then Blizzard tournaments, which are the ones that count, I think you have to have a hybrid of those. Because all of a sudden you kind of eliminate the other events going on as far as how they matter, players' willingness, and their kind of their incentive to play those things kind of diminishes as well, things outside of what Blizzard is doing. Am I crazy?
No, and to your point, that's how it works for StarCraft. And StarCraft is sort of where Blizzard has the most experience with this because they've been doing it for several years. The contemporary World Championship Series system for StarCraft started in 2013, but had a couple years of sort of predecession before that in the 11 and 12 area while they were sort of figuring out how it would work after they switched from Brood War to StarCraft 2 and wanted to sort of like sponsor it and show it off. Now they have this well-refined system where there's 3 seasons of play. All the third-party tournaments that apply get to award points towards qualifying for BlizzCon. And if you look at the like table of who is qualifying to BlizzCon for StarCraft players, it's like, yeah, it's the winner of each season from each major event throughout the year, but it's also people who showed up and won, you know, Intel Extreme Masters or DreamHack or any of those other cool third-party events that also generally have Hearthstone, right? So that component of it, the third-party tournament component, exists and runs really well in my mind. It's very well oiled and works quite well. It's the other side. During the year, if I want to watch pro Hearthstone on a Thursday night, where do I get that? And right now I sit and watch somebody's stream because there is no event, there is no league, there is no long-term, like that's what I think it needs. It needs a league, not just ladder point acquisition into holy crap, it's playoff time, it's BlizzCon.
Do you think that also has to do quite a bit, though, with the fact that, I mean, there's maybe only 30 to 40 decently sized names in Hearthstone? I mean, honestly, if you go online right now at any given time with Twitch, there's a tournament going on. I mean, Vicious Syndicate does stuff. I mean, every Tuesday, you've got Tuesday Night Hype, you got Saturday tournaments and all that stuff that are going all this time. It's the fact that there's only a certain amount of people that the Hearthstone community is willing to watch.
I mean, maybe, but again, like I'm coming at it from every other esport thinking there's only 50 to 100 good pro StarCraft players in the whole world, right, across every region, let alone just like, you know, the 20 or 30 cool North American Hearthstone players that we can rattle off the names of. Like, I think the number of people exists to sustain it. It's the infrastructure that's lacking. There's no process by which we establish the good players throughout the year. They just have to sort of jockey for ladder position and then all slam together and figure it out at the end of the year. Case in point, Kalento this year, right? Gets disqualified from the EU last call tournament because he misses a notification, doesn't get to play. He was a strong player all year. He did tremendously well, but he gets edged out of the top whatever on the point system because there was no way for him to sort of bounce back from not getting first on ladder a couple months in a row, and is just gone. Like, despite the fact that he was a super competent player. Like, I don't know. I think if there had been some kind of league system, maybe and I'm not like mad that he didn't make it. I just think there's a process by which you could probably isolate the best players better and make the viewing experience more interesting throughout the year. JR.
I think the problem is everything seems to be done kind of behind the scenes, except for a few of these tournaments and stuff. Because the way that you kind of get in there is one of the big ways is by laddering, which is completely done, like, it's not viewable by us. It's just at the end of the month, we have this ranking. And, you know, if you're a player, you obviously know where you're at in the rankings. But as a spectator or whatever, it's just like, oh, at the end of the month, okay, who made the top 100? Okay, cool. You know, I don't know who any of these players are. I've never seen them play before, except for a handful of streamers. And I think that's one of the big things that they kind of fail at. If they want to build these storylines, a lot of it's being done like behind closed doors, basically. Right. And that's part of the problem of using the ladder system as a way to figure out where you're going to, you know, giving points based on the ladder system. Like, what they really need to do is get the in-game tournament thing going and then start using that to start having open tournaments that you can qualify for each month or whatever, and then be able to stream those or something like that, and then, you know, get the top 16 players that month to duke it out, you know, in a big tournament every month. And then now you have a month-to-month-to-month system of knowing these players that you're going to see at the end of the season. Right now, it's all done behind closed doors, basically, until you get to the last, final 2 months before BlizzCon.
Yeah, so to give another useful analogy from an alternate esport venue, the comparable thing that occurs in StarCraft qualifiers would be basically any player who hit Legend in January or February would be eligible to play in that first sort of bi-monthly tournament. You could sign up, play. If you made it through, they would take the 32 best people out of a double elimination tournament at the end of that process and say, okay, you guys are now playing in a bracket second weekend in March or whatever for these points. The winner gets X points towards BlizzCon, and use that instead of just who got where on the ladder, because it really creates this weird system that's just very it's not like it's hard to follow per se, it's just not as interesting because you don't see it. You're right, it all occurs somewhere out in the ether. So yep. That's my take, I guess.
Yep.
Cool. Yay. Yeah. Well, we should probably jump in. Oh, man. We're definitely going to edit that piece out. Let's write down the time. 46 minutes and some seconds. Cool. All right. Don't ever make me do that again, by the way, you two. That's your warning.
I didn't do anything.
JR, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about the meta? Since we are talking about ladder and tournaments and things like that, obviously the best decks are what we really want to know. What should we be running this week? What should we be running this month? So let's go ahead and jump into the meta.
Beat 'em or join 'em.
Oh, no.
Thanks, JR, for recording that sound clip, by the way. Your voice sounds way different in an isolated sound booth. So.
Yeah, did you notice my awesome, death animation that I did, too?
Yeah, and pretty good with the ninja star, by the way. Nice work. Yeah. Very good.
I thought it was nunchucks, but...
we're way beyond nunchucks. Nunchucks are for chumps. JR, tell us about the meta this week. What should we be running?
So we have Tempo Storm, Liquid Hearth, and Fade to Karma this week. Let's start out with Tempo Storm, because it doesn't change. I mean, Mid-Range Paladin moved up, and Secret Paladin moved down to third. Okay, cool. And Patron Warrior still number 1. Tier 2, you still have Control Warrior up there. You still see Mid-Range Hunter lower than what I feel it should be. Yeah, Dragon Priest is still a Tier 2 deck. But yeah, the tier 1 decks are Patron Warrior, Mid-Range Druid, Secret Paladin, and Demon Handlock, which went up to Tier 1 last week and is kind of staying there. So, based on this list, what do you guys think? Is it pretty spot on? You think there's something up here that should be higher? Lower?
Yes. It looks great. I like it. Mid-Range Druid's good. Demon Handlock's good. Secret Paladin is a great ladder deck, which is what this is all about. And Patron Warrior is eternally broken in the sands of time. As I watched Kevin play Patron Warrior, just oh yeah, I just decided to pick it up, and is just wrecking fools over at rank 4. And I love Kevin to death, but I don't know how much he knows about Patron Warrior. But Nothing. He still played it right. It's just yep, there you go. Yep. Followed the cadence. Done. Killed him. Games he didn't deserve to win, which in my opinion is every game.
It plays a lot like Miracle Rogue, right? You don't actually, with every other deck in the game, you play what you have, right? You've got answers in your hand, and you have to answer the questions that have been asked of you on the board, and that's it. In Patron, I'm no, I'm going to fish for the right answer. I'm going to draw 6 cards this turn and find the correct play, because I don't have to play what's in my hand. I play the whole deck simultaneously. It's absurd and wildly unfair. The Tempo Storm rankings, I think, reflect that, and they don't look at what you as a player are seeing on the ladder. They look at what is empirically good. And that's where I would maybe still not have Secret Paladin as a tier 1 deck personally. I could see it being a high-end tier 2 deck.
Guys, get over it. Secret Paladin is a tier 1 deck, and it's going to stay there for a good while, and that is okay. And it's okay, Kevin, it's okay to be a tier 1 deck.
It's true. It is okay. But yeah, and like there's stuff that you're seeing lots of on ladder that's rated quite low, right? Stuff like the Fel Reaver style Mech Mage. I see all the time, but it's rated at like the way bottom of tier 2. That's not because it's not present on the ladder. You see it every day. It's because it's not really good. There's tons of stuff that beats it. There's lots of good counters. And so in terms of like global win rates, yeah, stuff like Patron Warrior, Mid-Range Druid sits, atop a throne that I don't think they're getting knocked off of anytime soon.
I mean, even when you look at Liquid Hearth, right? Secret Paladin is number 3. I'm not letting this go, guys. Secret Paladin is a good deck. Our friends over at Coin Concede and Vicious Syndicate, Cora, amazing voice, by the way. Cora, if you even listen to this, your voice is amazing. But Secret Paladin, she made a really good deck, which I honestly like better than most of these linked decks. Small changes. But is wrecking. She's sitting at top 10 NA right now with Secret Paladin, and I was watching her stream. She was ripping it, and she's a really, really good player, but she doesn't get the time to put in that, Savitz and Firebat and Trump and Just Saying get to put in. Guys, Secret Paladin's here. It's a good deck, and until there are more mechanics to counteract secrets, it's going to be here to stay.
I mean, you flipped over to Liquid Hearth, so I think it's worth noting that the top 3 would not include Secret Paladin on Liquid Hearth's meta rankings if Firebat hadn't rated Handlock as 12th. Every other pro on their list put Handlock at 3rd, except for Show, who put it at 4th. And then everybody else is like universally like, no, this is a super good deck. And then Firebat said, no, it's junk. No one should be playing Handlock. If it weren't for his rating, Handlock would be higher than Secret Paladin, and Secret Paladin would be, I think, basically tied with Control Warrior. So that, and to me, that makes sense. Like, it's probably about as effective because Control Warrior is really good, very playable, but has some very specific counters, obviously, which I think is about the same place that Secret Paladin is in, right? It curves out well. It's got some big threats. It's got lots of very powerful cards. It just doesn't always win because there's a lot of stuff that works better.
Yeah. And then if you look at, Fade to Karma, they rank Paladin, Secret Paladin, mainly Secret Paladin and Mid-Range Paladin, and even Aggro Paladin very high. They still rank this week Paladin is the number 1 class, and then Warrior is number 2. And I don't agree with that. I think they should be flipped. I even think Paladin should be number 3 with Druid as number 2. And if you look at Tempo Storm and Liquid Hearth, that's kind of, where they kind of fit too. The thing about Fade to Karma's ranking, though, is they rank it by class instead of by deck, whereas the other 2 rank them by deck. So I don't know if I would rank Secret Paladin that high, although they do.
They rate decks not by strength, they rate decks by presence, right? So where Tempo Storm and Liquid Hearth look at which decks are good, Fade to Karma is like, no, we played 1,000 games of EU ladder as our team, and this is what we saw. So what they're saying is that in terms of what's being played at the high end of the ladder, there is a lot of Secret Paladin. Not that it's better or worse. And they do say that, like, for example, Secret Paladin, Mid-Range Paladin are popular decks and in the meta, whereas Aggro Paladin, they're saying, is kind of average or even starting to fall out of the meta. So it's more of a representation of what's on the ladder, not, for example, like I would say Tempo Storm's list is what will you see brought to tournaments. Like that would be the disparity there, in my opinion.
Yeah. And what they all have in common is 2 things. Rogue and Shaman, or actually one thing. Rogue and Shaman are at the bottom. With Shaman
I didn't even
being
know
lower
those.
than Rogue.
I thought they actually took those classes out of the game, personally. Yeah. I'm sorry. I should be more up onto these things.
But it's one of those things where Shaman, like we talked about this a little bit last week, where we thought Shaman was going to be in a really good place with the Grand Tournament. With the totem meta and totems becoming better and everything. But it's just not working out.
Well, okay, and that's not because Shaman didn't get a ton of good cards, right? The problem is that Shaman is basically hard countered by tokens. Shaman has no good answer to token decks of any kind. It gets ruined by things like the Paladin hero power and muster for battle, right? It gets destroyed by like you have no answer to implosion. So when any kind of mid-range Paladin is popular, Secret Paladin, Zoo, like any of that stuff is present on a ladder, Shaman really struggles because they don't have answers to it. What Shaman needs is it needs like because it floods the board really well. It just needs like cheap multi-target removal, right? It doesn't need like forked lightning. It needs something. It needs the Shaman version of Arcane Explosion, whatever that would be. I don't know what it would be, but it needs something that lets it answer tokens because that's what they're losing to.
Yeah, and it's like their removal isn't efficient removal because
Shock.
Right.
Earthshock is great, but it's single target, right? Like that's the problem. Is like I've been playing a ton of Shaman, and honestly, I can beat Secret Paladin if they try to curve out and they throw down Piloted Shredder and then like a Lotheb and then a Mysterious Challenge and then a Doctor Boom. Like I can answer all of those things. What I can't answer is like Muster for Battle into Hero Power into Quartermaster. Like I can't answer all of the tokens that get flooded onto the board. That's where that's what's holding Shaman down. And I don't know. Rogue is different. Like Rogue is being held down, I think, by its own separate set of problems that we discussed before, which is basically that they got nothing for utility out of this entire expansion. But it's tough. It's a weird place to be in for both classes. Shaman will probably come back when Paladin starts to fall out of the meta. That's my prediction.
And Rogue will still sit at the bottom because we talked about it last week.
Yeah, Rogue is in a tough spot. I don't think that anything really is going to bring it back.
No, unless some crazy aggro Rogue ends up working, which we haven't seen since early beta.
$5 says Rogue gets something really awesome in the to be disclosed content that Hearthstone gets at BlizzCon. That's about the only way.
I mean, let's be honest though, guys. I'm checking an email right now because I think this is super important to talk about. Last week, we talked about how Rogue is pretty much broken in a bad way for Constructed. And we didn't like necessarily do it because honestly we're mostly Constructed players. Sorry guys.
Totally.
We're not much for Arena. But John Farron sent us an email saying that the guys over at the Light Forge, are ranking Rogue as #1 in Arena. And so, I mean, I think that's something goes to say is the fact that, I mean, we love competitive Hearthstone, we love the ladder, we love Constructed, we love that stuff, but maybe our blinders are a little on as far as maybe, Blizzard balances toward Arena and Constructed. I don't know. Kevin, JR, what do you think?
It's a fair point. I don't play Arena as much as I probably should, so I don't think about Arena. When I think about judging cards, I think about how it's going to play in a constructed deck. I don't think about when the rarity type, how it's going to play out in Arena, what other cards it's going to go up against, the rankings and stuff like that. I feel like there are people out there that do it a lot better than I do because they play it every day and that's what they play, and that's completely viable. Rogue is actually really good in Arena, whereas it's not good in Constructed.
I mean, the classes that succeed in Arena are the classes that have easy access to cheap removal. That's the bottom line, right? And that's always been things like Mage and Rogue, to a lesser extent stuff like Shaman, and those classes have always been the ones that have been represented at the top of the tier lists for Arena. In the earliest days of the game, Warlock did really well in Arena because card draw was so important, and it was really tough to work card draw into Arena decks because you just don't get a choice, right? If you don't get presented with card draw, you just don't. So Warlock did really well for a period of time. But yeah, I mean, I think that the way to balance for Arena should and basically always has been card rarity, right? Because card rarity doesn't matter in Constructed other than the cost of acquisition. It's a total non-issue. It's not like you can put 4 of a common, 3 of a rare, and 2 of an epic in a deck. Like it has no bearing on Constructed. Card rarity exists to facilitate cost and arena. The hero power sucking in Constructed is not a valid thing to be like, oh, but it's okay because in arena, which is for better or for worse kind of the redheaded stepchild of the Hearthstone world, like that is not a good reason for Rogue to not be playable in Constructed, because that's where the majority of the game takes place.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I agree with you. I just, devil's advocate here.
Oh, and absolutely. Like, I mean, we ignored it. We just didn't talk about it, and that's our mistake. Like, it is a variable, but I think you could fix Rogue for Constructed without breaking it in Arena. Like, that's my gut, right?
Cool. So all in all, now that we've kind of talked about where the meta is, guys, what are you recommending to be playing this week? I mean, there's lots of good decks. I'm going to go out on a limb and say if you are below rank 5, so rank 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and beyond, I'm going to recommend Secret Paladin. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what these two posers are trying to say about the deck. Secret Paladin is great. You can I run the mid-range variant. It does really well. A 1v1 JR any day of the week. And we'll talk about it as he shakes his head at me. And it's great. I think it's a really good choice. It's fast. Games are decided pretty easily. Does relatively well on most against most decks except like Patron Warrior, which you're not really seeing at, rank 15 through 5. So thank the Lord for that one. So I'm going to tell you guys right now, run some Secret Paladin. It's really fun. And I recommend running Cora's deck list. I really like that deck list the best. I think it's one of the most balanced right now. And I think that's why she's sitting high on the ladder. And if you want to hear her talk about it, she did post a guide up. We'll put the guide in the show notes for you as well.
I'm going to say, so since John recommends Secret Paladin, we might as well make the circle complete. I'm just going to recommend that you play Face Hunter. Just if you want fast decks and you want to have a cancerous ladder with Secret Paladin, run Face Hunter as well. Just
JR, come on, man. Gosh.
Based on what I've seen, I'm gonna suggest that for the sub 5 ranks that John was talking about earlier, if you're trying to work your way up the ladder, Mech Mage is in a super good place right now. It counters a lot of the stuff that you're liable to bump into for like mid-range combo style decks, and if you curve out efficiently, it's beating a lot of control decks that aren't running like good board removal for clearing a big board of minions. Most decks don't have good answers to a strong opening from a Mech Mage other than like maybe Freeze Mage. And if you're seeing a ton of Freeze Mage, which I've started to notice like as I get up to like the 7 and upwards range, I'm seeing a ton right now at ranks 4 and 5, then it's time to switch back to your Patron, Control Warrior, mid-range Druid, or just tech, right? Just tech a deck, squeeze a Kesn Mystic somewhere into your deck instead of, I think the like go-to Mech Mage deck list right now runs a Blood Knight. Pop the Blood Knight out, pop a Kesn Mystic in, and just have that be your tech slot. But that list is a ton of fun. There's a really good version of it out there right now that only runs 1 Fel Reaver, drops the second one for Archmage Antonidas, and that list is super good. I had a lot of fun playing it. It was really effective, so every time I bombed ranks by experimenting with Shaman, I just climbed him back up with Mech Mage.
I will say, though, if you want to beat the meta and not join with Secret Paladin and Face Hunter and Mech Mage, there was a deck that Fate to Karma's player Varanus put out on the Hearthstone.BlizzPro.com site for a pure control shaman deck. And I have been playing that a little bit, and the deck is fun to play if you like control style decks. And in this meta right now, control actually works pretty well because you don't see a lot of super aggressive aggro going on. So I would give that a shot and see how well it does, especially since everybody's ranked shaman so low in the meta.
This is JR does this, right? This is this thing he does where he tells people to play a terrible deck so he can beat them on ladder. I remember this. We did this like a couple months ago.
It is not a terrible
You should go play this terrible deck, and then he ran the counter to it.
This is why we call it beat 'em or join 'em. So we tell you to play bad decks so we can beat them, and you can join them in playing bad decks.
That's why John wants you to play Secret Paladin.
It's so good. It is a we're done. All right. So send us your thoughts, as always, wellmet@blizzpro.com. Send us your emails. Tell us how wrong JR is, because he needs a reality check, folks. We're really getting to the point where he's going overboard. He's getting a little too bold. We need to put him back in the cage a little bit.
He needs to lose a PvP.
That's true. JR, I challenge you. Next week, player versus player. Do you accept my challenge?
You know what?
Do it. Yes.
All right.
PvP
Next
is
week,
back, boys.
you're right. PvP is back. John versus JR for all of the marbles. I think we have 6 marbles. It's a 6 marble, 6/6 bag.
We're up to 6.
Summons a bunch of secrets. So super strong. Yeah. Well, guys, we need to kind of start wrapping up. But before we do, we've actually got a special treat. For those on video, for those not in audio, we've actually, from Blizzard and Loot Crate, have been sent our very own Loot Crate to open up here on the show. So we wanted to go ahead and open this up with you guys, because supposedly there's some very good Hearthstone goodies going on in here. If you haven't heard about it, you're gonna hear all about what's inside of it. You guys ready for me to open this up?
Do it.
Totally. And while you're doing that, yeah, we definitely need to shout out big thanks to Blizzard's community team for getting us involved and sending us this Loot Crate so we can share it with you guys. If you aren't aware of what Loot Crate is, you need to hit up their website. Just look it up online. Basically, every month they send out a box full of super cool stuff themed around something. And this month it happened to include some awesome Hearthstone stuff.
Yes, so we're going to get to that in a second. Before we do, though, let's start from the top. I'm just going from the top of the bottom of the box. So first and foremost, it's a JR hat, beanie hat. Oh, sorry, no, it's Pikachu. Sorry, it's a Pikachu hat. This week's theme, I guess you would say, is summon. So this makes sense. I'm putting it on right now. I've got the Pikachu hat on with little Pokeball, little tassels. It's pretty incredible.
Now I'm sad I didn't get one.
Yeah, I mean, this looks incredible. Don't worry, I'll move the camera up. If you guys aren't watching the video, go ahead and fast forward to like 1 hour and 5 minutes, and you'll start seeing me putting on hats. The next thing is a Supernatural car, which I don't watch at all. So, sorry, guys. And then here we have a Simpsons Kid Robot collectible art piece. I have never actually opened up one of these before. And I feel like I'm
I thought you were
going
to say you've never watched The Simpsons, and I was just going to like flip my desk and walk off.
Katie refuses to watch The Simpsons, and it drives me nuts. I'm opening this up here. Clearly, they don't want me to know what this is at all, which is super... Ugh! I did not pack a scissors
the same one
either.
that I did.
I did not pack a scissors at all. Oh, there we go. There's a little... No! It's broken. Oh my gosh. This is so embarrassing. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry. All right. I got a little golden Simpsons Buddha.
Yep, that's
I
the same
guess.
one I got. He's on a donut.
He's on a donut, which is awesome. And then, of course, the Loot Crate pin for September, which is great. And then, all right, now we're getting to the good stuff, guys. I love
these comments in chat. Bag 1, John 0.
You guys are the worst. First thing, a cardboard Hearthstone card with a free Hearthstone pack and the coin right in the middle there. I've already got one of these, but these are...
They were giving those away at BlizzCon last year. That's where those all got started up.
And, oh my, now we're talking. I think JR should have this. Well, you already do have this, JR, don't you?
I am actually a subscriber to Loot Crate and have been for about a year and a half.
It is a Hearthstone stressed ball little doodad thing. So while you are losing playing JR's decks, you can squeeze this guy all day.
Because that's what you will be doing, is losing playing against my decks.
That's not true, JR. Come on.
I believe that's what you said, right?
So yeah. So that looks like we've got some cool stickers and stuff, a nice little book in here. I honestly, to be completely honest, I purposely did not watch any reviews. I did not watch any box openings because I wanted this to be a surprise. And yeah, some really cool stuff. I'm a fan. So this has been pretty cool. I've got my little stress thing here now. So whenever JR starts talking about which decks to pick, I'll make sure to squeeze this guy all I want. Lootcrate.com. We might get a different link to put in the show notes later on from the guys at Blizzard. But for now, lootcrate.com. They start at as low as $11.95 a month if you're looking to grab a subscription. And it is really cool. And I'm going to go ahead and change my camera up to my Pikachu hat. Am I looking sexy?
Good look for you, man. Yeah.
Am I looking sexy? Katie's coming over after this, and I'm going to greet her in this, and she will probably be amazed and astounded. So, cool. All right, guys. We have had an incredible show. Let's go ahead and start talking about our iTunes reviews, I believe is where we're at this week. JR, I think you've got those this week.
Yeah, so the iTunes reviews this week, which are always very, very welcome. They help us out a ton. From the USA, we've got To The Detail, who is Alec from Golden Wisp, who will be sharing time with us at Con Before the Storm. And we also have someone named Spoong. Or Sponge. Yes. I don't know. Something like that.
Definitely. Well, that was well read, JR. Well met and well read. You nailed it. Just a quick shout out to Alec over at Golden Wisp. We're really excited to hang out with you and Hunter this year at Con Before the Storm. We're going to be hanging out at about 9:30 at Con Before the Storm, and we're going to be hanging out beforehand, meeting fans, things like that. So if you guys want to be a part and you're going to be at BlizzCon, or you're in California, you're just going to go to the Con Before the Storm piece, it's the day before BlizzCon, so that's Thursday night. We're going on at 9:30 p.m. to talk about Hearthstone. That's California time, so that's PST. Patrons. No new patrons this week, but Kev, give us the deets.
Yeah, so like John said earlier in the show, we're really, really excited to get some new stuff recorded for you guys. If our Patreon breaks that $350 mark, we're going to be putting together all new host intros. If you don't remember those, go check out like the first 2 or 3 episodes of the show. They were super cool, a lot of fun. New intro and outro for the show would just be a ton of fun. And let us sort of give back to our, voice acting talent and some of those other people. If you're not a supporter of the show and you would like to help us out, you can hit patreon.com/wellmetpodcast, sign up to get access to our audio soundboard, a t-shirt sent right to you, your choice of color, size, and style, coaching from your choice of the 3 hosts. I guess don't pick John. Anything you like as far as something like that. So check it out.
That was rude. I will coach you all the way to Legend with Secret Paladin. It will happen. All right, guys. Shout outs.
Coach yourself there first.
Come on. Jeez.
Shots fired.
Rice. Gosh. All right. What are you guys up to this week? JR, what are you doing?
This week, I'm October 1st. October baseball's coming up, so that's next week, though. And, I'm just going to enjoy Hearthstone. That's what I'm going to do this week. And for the most part, so last week I had put out like a bat signal for help with BlizzPro, and a ton of you guys emailed me. And if you have not heard back from me, don't worry. I just had a super busy week last week, and I will get back to you this week. I got them. I will be responding soon. And I apologize that I haven't had a chance to get back to you yet, but that's why I need help. So.
Cool. Kev, what about you?
Well, I mean, at this point, my whole life is basically BlizzCon prep. I'm getting ready to put together all this stuff. I'm excited to hang out with all the people who are going to be at Con Before the Storm, checking out the podcast panels. If you don't know about the event already, you need to look it up online. Come hang out with us. They've got a tap room set up where you can meet the hosts of all the different podcasts, hang out, have a drink with us, get stuff signed if that's your thing. We'll be there, and then going on stage, as John said, to do a little blurb as one of the featured Hearthstone podcasts. So working some material for that. Gonna be trying to play a little more Hearthstone. Also got back into StarCraft lately, which was really cool. So I've been doing some more of that. And yeah, at this point, it's 100% just BlizzCon predictions, BlizzCon prep. My whole life is owned by that convention for the next like 6 weeks. It's crazy.
Cool. Well, as for me, I'm doing a whole load of nothing. So just listen to what those guys said. As always, thank you to Blizzard and Loot Crate for the awesome stuff. You can sign up at lootcrate.com to get your awesome September Summoners Loot Crate. Thanks to Jake Butno for the music at jakebutno.ca. Dread Scythe for the awesome layout at Scythe Designs. Send us your emails at wellmet@blitzpro.com. Tweet us at wellmetpodcast. And, of course, our individuals are always at the end of the show. Patreon.com/wellmetpodcast, and you're going to find us on audio and video all throughout the world. Just kidding. YouTube.com/BlizzPro, and of course iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, and everywhere else. Guys, it's been a complete pleasure for episode 29, and we are out.
You can find John on Twitter at KickedTripod and on Twitch at twitch.tv/KickedTripod. You can find JR on Twitter at Eldorian and on Twitch at twitch.tv/BlizzPro. And you can find Kevin on Twitter at Lack of Realism and on Twitch at twitch.tv/OdinTV.
Or like added.
BlizzPro.com. Beyond Noob.